afternoon, everybody. Today is Thursday, March 28th, 2019. It's just right at 1 p.m. This is the meeting for the Nevada Commission for the Reconstruction of the V&T Railway. If everybody would join me in the Pledge of Allegiance, it would be great.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, everybody. Let's go on to agenda item number 1. Roll call, please.
Nick Morano,
Here.
Denny Dotson,
Here.
Stan Jones,
Present.
Mike Santos, and Marshall McBride were not able to make it today, but they've been updated.
Okay, great. Okay, then we'll move on to agenda number 2, possible action approval of today's agenda. And I believe we have a slight change. We want to shuffle some things around.
Yes, if we could please, before we get to the audit, if we could have Molly Ellery present us with the marketing report.
Okay, so we'll move item 9 up to just right after item number 4. Is that right?
That's right.
Okay, great. Any discussion? Any comments from the public on this item? With that, I'll entertain a motion.
You want me to? So I move to approve the agenda as modified by the general manager.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, we're going with agenda item number 3. This will be public comment. Again, public comment would be items that are not on today's agenda. Do we have anything from the public today? Okay, hearing none, then we'll move on to agenda number 4, possible action, approval of the meeting minutes for February 28th, 2019. Any discussion?
We had some addition or some changes from the minutes that I sent to you all. They were basically capitalizations, and then the word site was S-I-G-H-T, and it was spelled S-I-G-H-T, and it should have been S-I-T-E, but you have a copy of those. And thanks to Mike, he spotted those. Mike. Bro.
Okay, any comments from the public? Hearing none, I entertain a motion.
I move to approve the minutes as approved, as adjusted.
I have a motion. I have a second. All those in favor? Aye. Okay, we'll move on to now agenda number 9. Molly.
Chairman and members of the board, for the record, my name is Molly Ellery with Argentum Partners. I do want to start off and apologize if I am coughing during our presentation. I'm overcoming an ailment. So I just wanted to apologize up front. I'm not sick or contagious, I promise. So with that, excuse me, today we would like to present our 2019 marketing plan. There are going to be a couple of different steps in this. The first is going to be the presentation on the screen, and everyone should have a copy in front of them. This is really going to go over our paid marketing as well as like the visual marketing that you'll be seeing throughout the year. The second step is going to be our PR plan. It is outlined extensively, but I'm going to go over it quickly because it is a reflection of what you're about to see. And the third step, just for everyone to be in the loop, is going to be a short video of where our website is at in terms of look and feel and what some of our page development looks like right now. I do want to express that the content you're going to see on the website is not finalized by any means. We are working with Elaine to make sure it's up to date and ready to go for a late April launch date. So with that, we will get started. So first we wanted to bring in our marketing timeline. Again, this is going to be very reflective of what our PR plan will propose. So for the most part, what we're proposing throughout this is providing email, radio, and creative production throughout April and May. The email and radio is going to support our first 2 events, which is Mother's Day and the STEAM Kickoff. The creative production is going to focus around a photo shoot and a video shoot for our new character campaign, which I will introduce to you momentarily. That is going to give us brand new assets, a brand new feel for what the V&T Railway is going for, attract a new audience. So this is our proposed layout for how we're going to operate through April and May, just in our paid media. This is also incredibly flexible based on if we sell out, if we're not doing so hot on something, we can move things around, but this is where we sit currently. June and July, this is where you'll start seeing some print introduction to promote some of our our events with more longevity, for example, Toast of the Canyon, and then our character campaign we're going to put into a print ad as well once we have our final assets from our photo shoot and video shoot. And then into August, again, some more print for some more upcoming events. Email and radio is going to be constant throughout the entire season to promote our special events in addition to our STEAM season, because we need to make sure we're filling those trains as well. And then you'll start seeing we're incorporating the 150th anniversary, since we are launching that on August 16th. So going into September, same thing that you've been seeing in the last couple of months. We're just carrying it all through, incorporating the 150th. Same through October into the end of the season, which is October 13th. Now, prior to this, we have had a couple of points where we were promoting Polar Express explicitly, either with radio or print and email blasts. We'll also feature Polar implicitly in some of our other things, but October 14th is when our strictly Polar Express advertising will begin with print, email, and radio. So we've made sure that our funds are available for all that. On the note of Polar, in a marketing meeting we had, Chairman Dotson did ask if we can create our own Polar video and Polar assets. I haven't received an answer back, so we have put some money aside just in case that does come through, but we're not holding our breath, but we are following up to get those answers for you. So this is what we're really excited about. We did just have a marketing planning session and to come up with a campaign for this year. And what we came up with, we're calling it Choose Your Character. It's incredibly fun. It really embraces the history of V&T, engages audiences of all types, from children all the way to our grandparents. So this is kind of what the mood board for our photo shoot, for our print assets is going to look like. So we want a very clean, old-timey feel that embraces the different characters that you see in Virginia City and when the train was commissioned, in addition to some really classic shots of the train for our evergreen promotion. So we've done some ad mock-ups that I think are really fun. So the idea for the Choose Your Character is which character are you going to be? And we've had some ideas, and Elaine's given us some historical figures that we're going to incorporate as well. But the basics of it was, are you a saloon owner, the banker? Are you the marshal, potentially a minor or a criminal? And people will get to choose the character that they want to embrace on throughout their journey up to Virginia City. This campaign is going to explicitly look at our long runs, because those are the trains that we typically have trouble filling every single weekend, not our special event trains, because the two things are separate. So we've come up with a really fun video concept. There's a great description here, but the quick of it is we're going to have 3 or 4 different outtakes with a car full of people. They're driving somewhere, and every time we cut back to the car, all of a sudden the dress of the people in the car changes. So it's going to start with they're wearing old-timey hats, and then all of a sudden like an old-timey jacket. And by the final time you cut back to them, they are in full 1800s garb, mustaches, hats, like the whole 9 yards. And when they get out of the car, they are at the V&T depot ready to board the train with a bunch of other reenactors, and they're really embracing their Choose Your Character experience. We are filming this in 15 and 30-second clips so that it is good for all social, digital, and then if we did want to, we could provide it to a TV station to run as a commercial as well. So one of the ways we're going to integrate this into our website, which I think is really fun, is on the homepage we have a Choose Your Character, and we're going to do a fun little quiz. And the person gets to click on there, and they get to answer a myriad of questions, and they are assigned a character. There's some history about that person in Virginia City. And we haven't decided quite yet if we're going to use that to decide if that's the character they actually get when they book their tickets or not. But it is a fun way to integrate our campaign into our website. So we have some different activations that we've proposed to help carry this campaign out past just the depot. So this specifically would be for when you're riding the train. So we would create passports for the different characters. They would have information about the character on it, places of interest that people might go in Virginia City that relate to that character. And then on the back, or as excuse me, as a potential insert into that passport, we would do train bingo. And it's all the fun things that you'd see on the train. This will also help if we're having any issues with our audio, or people are talking and not able to hear the conductor. They're still going to embrace the history of the train, even though they could potentially miss it from the conductor because we have audio issues. So it really integrates everybody into the experience, especially our younger passengers. So this is one of our potential activations that we would do outside of the depot. We do want to mention this would be outside of what our current production is, but we're looking at potentially getting this sponsored, building it ourselves, some other things. But it's just a cutout. It would have our 3 or 4 different characters that we want to use. And then people get to take that fun picture and post on social. It would have a hashtag VT Railway, all of our different social handles, because people love taking pictures of themselves. Oh, on that note, we did also propose doing mirror clings. So like in our bathrooms or at a high traffic place, on the mirrors we would stick like a top hat and a mustache, and people could see themselves in the cling and then take a picture. So it's all about engaging potential riders with what we're doing and then getting them to put it online. We did come up with some special event ideas if we want to carry this through to potential train routes. So one would be the VNT party. It would just be a one-time event. We would encourage people to dress up. We'd serve tea either at the depot with some treats or on the train. Those are logistics we'd work out after the fact. But it really just goes with that whole feel of choose your character and have a fun afternoon. The second event consideration was train karaoke. Everyone loves karaoke in the car, in the shower, at a bar. So why not take that to our awesome train ride? This would be really great for our Carson Canyon route. And we could do train-themed songs or just popular hits and engage lots of different audiences that way. So that is our paid marketing proposal for the year. Again, it's entirely flexible based on our needs. But going from that, I'll let that do its thing. If you look at our PR plan, you're going to see that our goal for the year is to really make sure that people know who and what VNT is. And we're doing that by embracing the history. This goes perfectly with our campaign. Our strategy is obviously we're going to use our special events, our new campaign throughout the season to make sure that we are successful outside of just Polar Express. We are more than just Polar Express, and we are not a train that people just ride 2 months out of the year. We have our focuses, our ideas and tactics. So we have a myriad of ongoing efforts that revolves around regular press releases and updates, updating community calendars, meeting with boards of interest like RSCVA and NCOT, posting on social media. All of those things are going to be happening every month in some way, shape, or form. We want to host at least 2 media familiarization tours, one with local media, one with out-of-market media, and that could be in a group or it could be a couple of individuals that we do. It just depends on everyone's availability and budget. But there's an idea of how we would host it for local media based around our campaign, and then an idea of how we would host regional and national media. All of our media specials, again, I won't go through all this, but pretty much we want to be on every single media platform in Northern Nevada for earned media. And then obviously when we invite media to town, we would get on their media platforms as well as out-of-market media. We want to continue our community partnerships. Last year, we had a really great VIP train with Yelp, and we want to host something like that again, either with them, with different chambers, YPN, but in continuing to increase those partnerships and expanding to the cities and communities that support us, like Carson City, Virginia City, and all of those organizations. And then here's a rough timeline of what our PR would look like. Again, it's very reflective of what our paid media is going to look like. And with at some points looking ahead to make sure that we are being preemptive to what the paid can do, because paid has a short window of when it's most effective. Earned media and social media doesn't. So at points you'll see we're promoting things much sooner than the paid media would go into effect, but there's a rollover in longevity. So feel free to look through that, and if you have any questions about it, let me know. On that note, we have, this is the best part. So we have some mock-ups, not mock-ups, I'm sorry. We have some short videos of what the website looks like right now, look and feel. Again, this is not content finalized. But, so you see the train rolling in, got the steam, videos are great. That home bar has a click down, and then one of the things we're going to be shooting with our evergreen video is something like this that we can keep rolling but change out maybe twice, 2 or 3 times in the year. So that's the top of our homepage. As you scroll down, this is what you'll see. So these are our different ticketing options. As of right now, we're going to have 6 that sit on the homepage. Again, content is changeable, and it will rotate as special events come and go. And then we have a spot on the homepage directly for history, and then our basic nav bar at the very bottom. One of the things we did want to point out is that our navigation bar at the top is quote unquote sticky. So it moves with you as you move down the page, which means that buy ticket button never goes anywhere. And as you see throughout the page, we have several points where we're activating people to buy tickets. One of the key things that we can do here, and we can work with Fair Harbor, is if people are coming to the homepage and they're clicking on things that aren't buy tickets, we can figure out why, and we can make modifications to our digital advertising as well as minor modifications to the website to drive people to buy tickets. And then our overall website design, just again, it's a really brief slideshow of what it looks down. Again, the drop-down navigation, the video you just saw, all of our different tickets. And then the one other thing we wanted to show, and I know it's really small, I apologize, but currently this is the feel of what our history page would look like. We just got some new assets from Elaine, so this is actually going to be chock full of historical photos, and we're updating some of the information as well. But we're going to change it so that the focus is more on the railroad itself and the train, as opposed to like what was happening around the train at that time. And then we have a really nice paragraph about what the commission's done to reconstruct V&T. And then, okay, don't go, that's fine. There we go. So one of the things we didn't have on our old website was an actual train routes page. So on our old website, when you click to train routes, there's a little drop down that shows you what it is, but then you click to each individual one. That's really time consuming, and it takes potential buyers away from maybe buying more than one ticket at a time because they have to go to so many pages. So we created a train routes page that would feature all the different things that we have. And again, all of this content will be modified and changed to be appropriate for what we need. But this is also going to increase ticket buyership because they don't have to go to 50 different pages to get there. This is an example of what one of our ticketing pages would look like. So it's our long haul, which is definitely one of our keys. It's really simple and straightforward. You have your schedule and fares on the left. You have your highlights on the right. And then all the information, again, a lot of engagement to buy tickets. I won't go through this in too much depth, but we have an FAQ page because we do get a lot of questions. We've updated that with Elaine to make sure it is reflective. And then this is something new that we've added. It's an event calendar because we don't want to just be a mode of transportation, but at the same time, we do have a very long ride to Virginia City. So we wanted to give people an opportunity to plan their vacations with us, not just use us as a way to get to vacation. So you will see that we are incorporating, we have our rides, we have Virginia City, and we have Carson City. So we will be linking with those 2 visitors authorities websites, as well as Reno and Tahoe on a separate page to show upcoming events. So and this is not content correct. But let's just say, for example, on the 11th, we have Mother's Day, but then up in Virginia City, they have camel races. We would show those two things so that they could book their vacation accordingly. So that's where we sit right now with the look and feel of the website. We're currently updating all of our content, which is, that's a time-consuming process, but we're looking to be ready April 22nd as of right now, all things considered. I believe that was everything I had to present to you, and I'm available for questions. Thank you for your time.
Questions from the board?
So, not really a question, Molly. I enjoyed the presentation both today and the one that you did a few weeks ago over at the chamber. I particularly like a number of things that you and our gentlemen have come up with. I think the website is tremendous. I like the look of it. I like the feel. I like the functionality. And even though you didn't talk about it today, the analytics capability that's going to bring, and I think the ability to grow our ridership because of that is pretty significant. Characters, I love the characters. I'd like to see that expanded. The onboard train activities, I think, is really good. I think the train karaoke is going to be a great hit. I think it'll be an irreverent activity for people to take part in, and it is kind of a long ride, and I think it'll kind of make some of that pass in a really happy way. The collaboration with the other visitors bureaus, I think, is really important. I think that was one thing looking back on, even though we did have, obviously, from both Virginia City and Carson City, we had their representatives as an integral part of the commission. I think tying it all together, one-stop shopping on a calendar, for example, is a really good move. So I like it, like the plan. Think Argentum did a really good job with it. So thank you.
If you don't mind, I am going to interrupt you really quickly. There are a couple things I forgot to mention, and I apologize. The first was at our marketing meeting, Chairman Dotson asked us why we weren't looking more into online radio. So I went back with our media buyer and I said, hey, why aren't we doing this? Can you give me some data? So I got a breakdown of what online radio versus terrestrial radio, which is like 92.1 cable, what those two things are best suited for. And the reason, verbatim, the reason that we recommend terrestrial radio instead, not only because of price, is because it leverages the talent and promotional opportunities to really drive messaging. For example, radio remotes, which we do have a couple that we're planning on scheduling, giveaways, talent endorsements, and leveraging the station's loyal online audience. Alternatively, as an addition to the digital campaigns, we can utilize the audio spots to run an online radio programmatically. So basically, it gives us more to leverage right now without a ton of the cost, and it really hits our entire ridership base as opposed to a smaller audience. But I did get that answer for you because I was curious too. The second thing I wanted to mention, which is not PR related, but is more so where are we going to find some more money related? Mike had a meeting. So we've had meetings with the governor and his chief of staff to discuss different funding options for V&T, because right now everyone is trying to find funding at the legislature. So we wanted to have a couple extra plans. I'm reading this verbatim. So right now the governor is focusing on cultural projects and was incredibly interested in this. He said cultural projects are going to be at the forefront of his time in office. Additionally, as I'm sure you know, his wife is Asian American, and she's really interested in any project that can showcase Asian American history in Nevada, which we have two really great aspects of that with the Chinese Wall. And she loved that we had that. Obviously, we fit both. So they expect to name a new director of Travel Nevada at the start of April, and they want us to work with that person to find and identify monies for the extension of the railway. Currently, there are a few bills floating around that could have an opportunity for us. But again, as I mentioned, everyone's kind of looking for money. So we wanted to have some backup plans. Depending on if we were able to get into a bill, we'd have to work with all of those different entities. So right now we're kind of leaning towards the governor and making sure we get him and the first lady out on the train and get their love and support for it. So I apologize for my interruption, but wanted to give those updates.
Stan, comments?
Just a quick question.
Go
to
ahead.
that.
Go ahead.
Don't mind,
Go
Mr.
right
Chair.
ahead. Go right ahead, Nick.
So any potential for the governor or members of the legislature to be part of maybe our 150th kickoff. I think that would be not only would draw more attention, but I think we'd have a lot of fun with it. There's a lot of history that we could obviously showcase as well as part of it.
Members of the board, 100%. So the governor and the first lady have already said they're in for that. We just have to make sure the scheduling works. So we're not worried about getting them there. In terms of members of the legislature, it's probably going to be Northern Nevada legislators, because once session ends, the majority of them are going to go back to Vegas. And they probably aren't going to want to come back for a while because they've been here for so long. And unfortunately, we didn't get in front of this soon enough to get them all to V&T for a legislative day or get on the calendar for a V&T day. So yes, we would focus on our Northern Nevada legislators as well as trying to time this around anything where Southern Nevada legislators could be in town. But yes, we've already had that discussion with them.
Dan?
Thank you, Molly, for your report. I think your calendar, where we have a collaboration of Virginia City, Carson City, you, everybody, is very important. Calendars are extremely hard to manage, and I think this is very important for us. Sorry.
Gotcha. A couple things. First of all, thank you for the follow-up on the radio. It's nice that you do catch my subtleties sometimes when I throw those comments or questions out there. The one thing I would just say in that same thing on the radio is if we do standard or basic radio, just make sure that our radio stations that we're advertising in fit that demographic that you guys presented us. Because some of the examples you gave, I don't know that match quite up with that demographic. Second of all, I had a question, Elaine. We had two websites, one that we house a V&T commission meeting minutes and all that stuff. Can we get rid of that and put a page on the new, or are we going to do that for the new website?
Yes, in fact, that's going to be necessary. We just got access to that commission website, and it will be blended. But to go ahead and put that just to have one website for people to go to would be a lot more
Right.
user-friendly.
Yeah, exactly. We did the same thing up in Virginia City, put it all on together, and it seems to be pretty good. And then I know we're going to get to budget, but it was a wonderful presentation you guys did. You hit a lot of the things that's the reason why I'm sitting here was because of the marketing side. When we did the BDR, was to make sure that we did that, like Nick mentioned, the full integration between the two visitor bureaus. I just looking forward to seeing to make sure we got the money in there to pay for it all, because I think that's it should be found somewhere in the cookie jar.
And
dug
on
through the cookie jar.
the note of monies, there's lots of things we want to do that we're going to work to either get some sponsorships or one of the ideas that Elaine had was on the passports, for example, to save on printing costs, was to get them sponsored by local businesses that will be impacted. So not that we've had this discussion, but perhaps Gold Dust West would sponsor one. They'd pay for all our printing costs. And that would make sure we're not cutting into any production monies. So we're looking at avenues for that as well.
Great. Okay, any other further questions, discussion?
I just want to also impress upon the board that what you saw today was for look and feel. The actual tickets that you're going to see promoted, those 6 boxes that you saw, the first 3 and then rotated to the next 3, we are going to step out with our new promotions being, like the Stars and Stripes, the Thursday special for Polar Express in April and May. You're going to see those boxes, once we go live, change to reflect what we're trying to sell at this point in time.
Great. Okay, any other comments? Anything from the public? Yes.
Just a quick comment in looking at that.
I'm gonna stop. If you could go ahead and come to the microphone and state your name for us. Thank you, Miss Nicole.
Nicole Bard. Just a comment that the look and feel on the VNT website is very complimentary to the one we have for the VCTC. So I'm very, pleased to see that. Question though is what does the Carson City website look like? I mean, does it have to be complimentary? Because
I don't know that it needs to be complimentary.
Yay for
But
us.
I think that you'll find with Dave Peterson, the new executive director, is that they'll probably be evaluating that brand, that it fits, and bringing it up to speed. I mean, it's something that we always evaluate. You kind of change with the times on what's working, what's not. And I'm sure that Dave will dovetail it in there some way that works for everybody, because I think he's pushing that
Well,
pretty
it's going to
hard.
have its own identity, I know
It
that. I'm
will,
just
but
saying, it was marked to me how well it does dovetail with our VCTC, so thank you.
Go ahead.
And Chairman Molly Ellery, for the record, on that note, Carson City did just put out an RFP to do a brand new website. So I expect that it's going to look much more modern in the same way that our website and the VCTC website does. And on your note, VCTC, per Lane's fantastic recommendation, was actually one of our inspirations. We work very closely with the gentleman who made your website. He did one of our client sites as well. So that's why you see a lot of that similarity there.
Okay, thank you. So with that, I guess we'll move on, move ourselves back up to agenda number 5, possible action. This will be a review and possible approval of the 2017 and 18 fiscal year audit for the Nevada Commission for the Reconstruction of the V&T Railway.
Vanessa Davis with Steele and Associates, your auditor of record. I have the financial statements. I believe you have a copy in front of you. We'll probably go over this fairly quickly because I really don't want you to fall asleep. The first thing that I want to point out is the independent auditor's report, which is directly behind your table of contents. And it's what is called a clean opinion. It's an unmodified opinion. That means that we basically say that we audited the records and we didn't find anything that gave us pause, that the financial statements are materially correct, and that everything went okay. The next pages 3, 4, 5, and 6 are basically your management's comments. They've been reviewed by both Hugh and Elaine, and this is basically the commission's discussion on where they see in the past and where they see themselves going. And like I said, these comments were reviewed by Elaine and Hugh and given their approval. And that's just for your information and for something to read when you want to, you're suffering from insomnia and you want to go to sleep. Page 7 is your statement of net position. That's basically a picture of where you were at 6/30/18. Basically, the financial position of the commission at that point in time. It's like a snapshot of where you were at one particular point in time. I'd like to point out that the presentation has changed significantly from where it was at 6/30/17, and that's because we've moved the property, plant, and equipment into the business fund from the government fund, because we figured you couldn't sell train tickets if you didn't have a train to run on. So it made sense that the fixed assets belong to the business activity rather than the general fund government activity. So you'll see that it looks a lot different from what it did last year. If you look at the total column, you'll see current assets of 169,244. That's basically the assets that you anticipate being able to convert to liquid assets within the next year. And we usually compare that to the current liabilities, which are sitting at 77,918. That's a 2-to-1 ratio, which is a very strong ratio. That means that you can cover your liabilities twice, which is a good position to be in. Moving on to page 8, this is your income statement. Now, this is basically, rather than being a snapshot of where you were at 6/30/18, this is an indication of what happened throughout the year from July 1st to June 30. It shows the income and expenses. One thing I'd like to point out is that overall, there was a loss of $791,000 for the year. The bulk of that is depreciation, which is a non-cash expense. But also, if you look at the prior year's loss, the prior year had a $939,000 loss, so you've basically improved operations by $148,000, which is a good trend to see. Once you remove the depreciation from this $791,000 loss, you're sitting at an actual loss of approximately $11,350, which is not bad. Considering where we've been in the past, we're showing significant improvement, I believe. Again, there's a transfer line there that looks huge with the 32 million. That's basically moving your fixed assets from the general fund to the business fund. The remaining pages basically take your, you'll notice that there's two columns on page 7, a government activities and a business type activities. Page 9 and 10 basically give you a balance sheet and income statement for just the general fund, just the government fund that shows just those revenues that relate specifically to that. That would be your license plate revenue and gifts and donations and the expenses that related to that, resulting in a net income actually before transfers to the business fund of $10,000, roughly, $10,005. And then pages 12 and 13 will take the business activities column and just show you the balance sheet and income statement for just the business fund itself. And that will show you that the bulk of the loss occurred in that area as opposed to the general fund area. Now, in talking with you, it's my understanding that we're going to work toward getting this all combined into one fund as opposed to the two funds, in which case next year this will look completely different again. But it was separated out this way because that's the way the budgeting process went. You had a budget for the general fund and the business fund, and so I had to present the financial statements in the same format as the budget. So once the budget goes to one fund, so will the financial statement.
Awesome, okay.
Basically, your footnotes start on page 15, and that's a lot of typical accounting verbiage that talks about how you recognize your revenue on an accrual basis, what the difference between the two funds are, what your budgeting process is, how you value your inventory. Again, not a whole lot in there. A lot of it just for your information and to explain some of the numbers and something to help you sleep at night. On page 20, we talk about the note receivable, the Draco note for the property that was sold, and it reflects the 12 payments that were made throughout the year and the balance that was left owing at the end of June 30, 2018, and how much you can anticipate in principal payments for the coming year. There's also on page 21 and 22, I believe, 21 and 22, you'll see a whole analysis of the capital assets, and that just shows you the asset categories that were transferred from the general fund, and it shows you them going out of the general fund and into the enterprise fund by category, and it shows you what makes up all of those assets on your balance sheet. On page 23, note 8 explains that there was an over budget expenditure in the enterprise fund, the business fund of service and supplies of $660,850, basically more than was what was budgeted. If we look at page 27, you'll see that occurred in your operating expense area. There was only $1,344,000 budgeted, and we spent roughly $2,004,925 for that overage of $660,000. And I just have to point that out in the footnote because the Department of the Treasurer's Office wants me to point out that you're over budget there. The issue is the revenues were under budget overall by about $140,000 by 230,000 under what was expected, and your expenditures were significantly higher than that. And I think a lot of that related to the work on the engine and the capital improvements that went on during the year, and other assorted expenses. We have to put the construction in process on the repairs and refurbishment of the one engine goes in your balance sheet as capital assets, but when we convert it back to the budget to actual, it goes into operating expense as opposed to capital assets. Then we go on to the reports on internal control and compliance, and that opinion is also clean and unmodified in that there was nothing that we found when we looked at the internal controls that gave us pause, especially when it came to the transition to Story County. Hugh worked with me extensively to make sure that we got all the numbers moved over right, that all the adjustments were made, and that everything moved in. We had a little bit of issue trying to track all the money, but once we found it, it just took, that whole transition process was a little bit painful, but we worked through it and it's fine. Then you'll see some auditor's comments, which basically is us telling you that everybody worked with us fine. We didn't find anything that we had any disagreements about. I have listed on the second page of those comments large adjustments that we made to the financial statements. That would be the next to the last page in your financial. And basically, there was some cash activity that had to be recorded that hadn't been recorded in QuickBooks because of the transition process, and the depreciation for the second half of the year that didn't get recorded when everything got moved over to Story County, and then some vouchers payable that we had to accrue that had been missed in the whole process of the transition. So all in all, I think you're moving in the right direction. The income seems to be looking up, and we've cleaned up quite a bit in this whole process of getting everything moved over to Story County, and I think that it should improve in the future. Questions?
Questions from the board or comments? No? I think, Vanessa, I appreciate the way you walked us through that. Sometimes these can be a little cumbersome to follow along, and you did a great job. And I know that with the transition to any organization and the realignment, reorganization, whatever you call it, going from two funds to one, there can be a lot of question marks. But I appreciate your work and Hugh's work on all you guys have done to keep us in line and get us in the right direction. So appreciate the blessing. So with that, we probably need a motion, or if there's any discussion, any public discussion, comment? No? Then we'll need to entertain a motion to approve.
Want a motion?
Yep.
Okay. So I move to accept I move to accept the approval of the 2017-2018 fiscal year audit for the Nevada Commission for the Reconstruction of V&T Railway.
I have a motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, motion carries. We'll move on to agenda number 6 for discussion only, a financial report. Elaine, would that be you or?
Yes. Okay, so we were able to provide the board today with what we use to watch and track our income and expenses. And Tiffany's been working on a QuickBooks format because I do need to see those numbers on a weekly basis, just so that I can make sure that we're keeping the train, excuse the pun, but on the tracks, but also our financials, that we have a realistic projection to where we're going to end the year. Overall, last year, so this year begins July 1st, 2018, and this is our fiscal year 2019. So here we are, March 28th. We have April, May, and June still to go, and we're looking fine. You'll see when you go through the expenses, we've detailed these. We've separated by Polar Express versus our regular season. As you recommended, Denny, you'll see that the column on your left is the Polar Express, the column on the right is regular season. Right now, where we stand, and that is without a lot of ticket sales, we still have Mother's Day. Train, our steam kickoff, and then also the entire month of June. And so we are going to see a significant jump in revenue. But thank you to Carson City and to Story County. We did get our interlocal contributions, and you'll see that on the very first page, that 190,000 reflects 125 from Story County and then 65 from Carson City. Now, what's not reflected there is the reserve fund for depot improvements, and you'll see that that's handwritten at the bottom there. We did not add that to our revenue because that is a set-aside fund just for a specific purpose. Overall, Polar Express ended the year $255,319.33 net. Makes up considerably for our $41,273.68. I would call that a loss for regular season. And so overall, we combine the two, and right now where we stand is with revenue in, expenses out, $214,045.65. So we're in the black.
Comments? Anything good?
Good report. Thank
Yep.
you.
Yeah, thanks, Elaine. This is great. It's clean. Good. Okay, any comments from the public?
Nicole Bard. Do you also provide as part of this report, or could you, or is the board interested in beginning on hand and then ending on hand, your cash position? Because this shows what we've done or what's happened from July until March. So this is telling us our net income is 214K, but relative to what's our cash position?
That will come from Story County. And so I'm just watching the budget. These are the figures so that I can keep us within budget.
Okay.
The full report will come from Story County. This is just internal financial direction, you might call it, so that we can.
So you don't get a monthly tally? I mean, when I get my bank statement, I'm happy to see how much I've got so that I know how many checks I can write. So that isn't part of what Story provides you to be able to manage your cash flow? Just a
I'll let
question.
you. Yeah.
Mr. Chair, member of the board, Hugh Gallagher, Story County Comptroller, we're still in the process through the Tyler of getting all of these reports together. And so now that we've got hopefully checks being delivered at any day, we will be able to now create the agency account that will have all of those reports for you.
Okay, it's not a critique, it's a question. Because
No, that was-
I'm
and
I'm
that's-
accustomed to see,
yeah.
cash flow is a big part of it.
And that's, that's
Okay,
the answer.
so when the system is up to speed completely and you've got everything straightened out. Okay, no, very, very good, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. We'll move on to agenda number 6 for discussion. Nope, we just did number 6, excuse me. I'm slow here. Agenda number 7 for discussion and possible action. This will be the review and possible approval of the 2019-2020 fiscal year final budget for the Nevada Commission for the Reconstruction of the V&T Railway.
So we did review this, commissioners, at our planning retreat. And there were a couple of recommendations, mainly to see an increase in our marketing efforts. And so I did add an additional 25,000 to, I repositioned 25,000 from the proposed budget that you witnessed at the early part of March. The total fiscal year revenue and total fiscal year expenses are exactly the same. All I did was shift money from various line items to make up an additional 25,000 to go towards advertising. The areas that I did pull those from were the capital outlay. I took some money from there mainly because we have an improvement fund to utilize this year, which is going to take care of a lot of our capital outlay requests or goals. And then also I took another 10,000 from our in-house marketing and narrowed that to just 5,000, about $5,000. So that was your 25,000. And that's where I was able to shift it from. That is the only change from our meeting in early March.
Okay, so then, Elaine, to clarify, revenue, we're looking at approving $1,457,425. It would be the exact same in expenses
Correct.
for basically a right-on balanced budget for next fiscal year.
That's a balanced budget, yes.
Okay, any comments or questions?
Just one question. Elaine, could you explain the difference in the train services to me again? We have 3 different rates.
Okay, so train-related services,
Yes.
so under, let's start up on the expenses at the top portion here. That 350,000, that is the cost of trains that we have scheduled to run this year, and the cost per steam engine versus diesel engines. So we're looking at 57 steam engines at $5,650 a day, and 5 diesel engines at $4,500 a day. And then the $630 a day, those are for wine trains, and there will be 9. So that is our regular season.
Thank you. Thank you.
And where did you get those numbers? Because I'm looking at this and I'm not.
Let's see what you have there. Right here off the side. Yeah, do you see right next to it, this is 5650? You have that? Okay. And then, of
Any
course,
other-
Polar Express is $6,000 a day.
Okay, okay. Stan, do you have some questions? No. Okay, we all good? Good. Anything else from the public? Yes, ma'am.
Nicole Bard. Because there's been such a change, and it's all in the positive direction, obviously, but there's also been increased expenses, could we also look at this budget, and I know it's different because we're not doing the 2 funds and the 2 separate budgets, however, to be able to look at this budget and compare it to the last 3 or 4. We've done some substantial investments in marketing, okay, and looks good, feels good, love it. We've also done substantial investments in staffing, great. And so despite how bad the past may have looked, it is still the past, it's still a baseline. For me, it would prove valuable to be able to continue to look at, so we've made these investments. How is that coming back to us in terms of revenue over the last couple of years, and in particular the years prior to this board, just to be able to continue to demonstrate that our investments have been sound and wise for us. So I'd like to see, and it's not me, it's you, but I'd like to see a comparison, much like what Denny does with the VCTC budget, that shows year over year over year, so we can look at what the trend lines are very quickly in one sheet to see our improvement and our progress. Just a request. And so the second thing is this budget is the blending of the 2 funds into one, so that we're not going to see a Polar Express subset budget to this overall budget so that we can see our own breakouts. It's all going to be melded into the one, right?
Correct, and that's where it says PEX, anywhere you see Polar Express expenses and Polar Express revenue on the top portion and the bottom portion.
All right, I wasn't aware
That's-
PEX was Polar.
Yes,
so-
that's Polar Express.
Okay, great.
And yes, I would love to do what you're asking for us to do the comparables. Last year, we experimented with the marketing budget to see if we could bring it way down, and what we found that it was challenging. So this year, we asked to bring it back up to where it has been in the years past. And then also our professional services have gone down considerably.
And see, I think it's worth it looking at what has gone up, what has gone down, because you do those investments for a net return on the revenue side. And so being able to see that it's either yielding or not yielding that. When you do this kind of a marketing thing, you've got 2, maybe max 3 years of increasing marketing expenses to get you where you need to go. And then those expenses can start to come down because you've established brand, you've established a number of things, and you expect it to come down. And yet you expect the yield or the impact, meaning in revenues, to continue to go up until you do your next marketing effort, and then, all that changes. So I'm just saying that there's another tool/comparison for this board to use as a way to evaluate how well we've done those investments.
Thanks.
Well, thank you for the props there, Nicole. But one thing I will say is it took a long time to get there. And it will with this organization too, where you're comparing apples to apples and understanding fully how well we do, evaluate it, and then go on to the next year and make educated decisions based on what we just saw. So I think we're headed in that direction. I do, but we have to go through it first and combine the two funds, and then make sure we get it in the right bucket. The object codes all match up. It takes a couple of years to get that thing where you're really looking at it objectively and can make management decisions. So we'll get there. I know we will. Any other comments? No? Okay. Thank you. Well, we can approve that, don't we? Yeah, we need to approve that one. So with that, no other discussion, I'll entertain a motion for approving the fiscal 219-220 budget.
I make a motion for the approval of the 2017-28, I'm sorry, I'm on the wrong one. Approval of the 2019-2020 final budget for the Nevada Commission for the Reconstruction of the V&T Railroad.
Second?
I have a motion and I have a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you, gentlemen. All right, we'll go on to number 8 for discussion of possible action. Discussion to enter into a contract with Armac Construction LLC as the lowest responsive and responsible bidder for the 2019 Eastgate Station Site Improvement Project, including the base bid in the amount of $149,896, in addition to authorization that a change order be issued to authorize up to a 5% contingency payment if necessary, as approved by the general manager, and authorization for the V&T Commission chairman to sign a contract reflecting this agreement. Elaine?
Thank you. On March 12th, we held a meeting at the depot and opened the bids, and we had received one. And so, that being said, we reviewed the bid, and that Armac is the company that presented the bid to do the work on the parking lot and the concrete, et cetera, around the depot, and to bring us to a better place as far as safety and also a nicer looking amenity. So I'm going to turn this over to Ken Dorr, and he'll discuss the bid as a whole.
Thanks, Elaine.
Push it again. Green.
Okay, look for green. Yes, Elaine, thanks for the introduction. Yes, pursuant to previous discussion, a couple of meetings back with the board, we went ahead and advertised the 2019 Eastgate Station Site Improvement Project, and that was formally bid. We advertised it, it was formally advertised in the Nevada Appeal, I believe on 2 separate occasions, and was out on the street, if you will, for the legal time that's required under NRS. Also, some of the construction services, bidding services picked up the information. They had that advertised too. We probably had about 8 plan holders, but again, as Elaine mentioned, we had one bid. One of the things I think that's going on, it's getting really busy out there in the world right now. And this is a little bit different project. It's not a conventional paving project because we're trying to utilize the recycled asphalt pavement, and then essentially putting a surface seal over top of that to get a decent and expanded parking lot without going to the full expense of actually paving with hot mix pavement. So basically, with that being said, we did receive one bid. Again, it was from Armac Construction. And that is what is being considered by the board at this point. In the packet, I think I had prepared a letter to Denny recommending that the board award that contract to RMAC Construction, and there's two parts of it. One was the base bid, which includes the upper parking area, the majority of the parking area, as well as some PC concrete flat work for safety improvements near the restroom, and also repairing the pedestrian ramp on the, I guess it would be the southerly side of the steel building, to essentially putting a concrete curtain, if you will, on the side of that walkway, and putting in a little walkway. That's been a little hazardous situation. I'm surprised that no one has broken an ankle on that yet. So that was the base bid item, and then we also included the additive items to see, to be considered to be awarded by a change order, to include the remainder of the parking lot all the way down to the RV turnaround where the model airplane road diverges from Eastgate Siding Road. And we had also put in there a shade structure, which, based on the review of the bids, what my recommendation is for the board to consider awarding the base contract and items number 2 and number 3 as bid for the additives, not to include the shade structure. So that's basically where we're at this point. There's a little bit of a wording change. If a motion is made, I want to bring it to your attention, I think, to clean that up on the agenda item, which I just caught that here just a minute ago. But other than that, again, we've worked with Ron and RMAC quite a bit. They're a good company, and I'm going to probably hold his feet to the fire to donate a few additional things, as usual, because I said something, and I'm not going to repeat it here, but I said, well, thank you, Ron, for that bid, but I don't know if I can stand the ER service after this, so.
Any questions from the board? Any comments?
No, I agree. I agree with going forward with the alternates. I think the shade structure is going to be important, and just go ahead and bite the bullet and finish paving all of that.
Yeah, and I concur. Any comments from the public on this item? Okay, with that, I'll entertain the,
Denny, and
yes,
again,
sir.
just to clarify, this contract recommendation does not include the shade structure at this point.
right.
I would suggest a little bit of wording on addition. Basically, if you go through this verbiage and then get down to the, and a change order be issued, and then I would insert in the amount of $39,146,000 to include additive bid items number 2 and number 3.
So in total, we're looking at $189,042.
Yes. And I think that's also clarified in the letter recommendation also. I think I actually did the math there.
So I think, maybe I'm wrong, but I think with the dollar amount that's listed in the agenda item, plus the additional up to 5,000, or 5% contingency payment being the 39, would that equal the 189,042?
Let me get my smart box fired up here.
Is it this one here? Just want to make sure we're clear. I mean, we did get the motion right. I mean, I think it's, if we read it as is, I think that covers us. But
Yeah, the basic contract and the two additional bid items does indeed total up to $189,042. The 5% contingency is, again, we could include that dollar amount in the contract, or just leave it as the 5%. And hopefully, we're not going to use that.
So the 5% is additive to the 149,000?
Be additive to the 189, so that actually comes.
So
up
it's
to
additive to the
198,
189
494.
amount then? Okay, so I mean, that's not insignificant.
I'll see a little bit more.
Taking the base bid and the recommended additive and adding 5%, that total is $198,494.10.
I just want to get the right amount.
Right,
down.
exactly.
Okay.
But I'm not sure, Mike, if we can really change any dollar amount on a motion other than what's on the agenda here.
No, I think if you just use the 5%, and go with the agenda item, you'd be all right,
Yeah.
I think.
And if need be, we can come back, but, or maybe it would fall back to the general manager being able to authorize that, or myself as the chair. But I think if we stick to the motion as stated, that should cover us.
Yes, because the change order has the additional amounts in it, and that's part of the packet that you have.
Right, right. Makes sense? Okay, any comments on this from the public? Okay, hearing none, if we're ready to go for a motion, who's a brave soul here?
You want me to try it?
Yeah, I think we're just,
Somebody's
yeah,
got to.
Okay, I'm actually going to reference the change order. It's in the package as change order number 1. So instead of just leaving it generic
Right.
in the motion, I'm going to say
Yes.
change order number 1, as opposed to in the motion, it's just a change order. Does that sound about right?
Yeah.
Okay, all right, well, let me try it. Okay, let me try this thing. Okay,
The change order, Nick, is
it's,
at least in,
yeah, it's in the package as change order number 1. Okay, so let's try it here then. So I move to enter into a contract with Armac Construction LLC as the lowest responsive and responsible bidder for the 2019 Eastgate Station Site Improvement Project, including the base bid in the amount of $149,896, in addition to authorization that change order number 1 be issued and to authorize up to a 5% contingency payment if necessary, as approved by the general manager, and authorization for the V&T Commission Chairman to sign a contract reflecting this agreement.
that sounds good. I have a motion,
Second.
and I have a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries. Okay, let's move on here. We've already done 9, so let's go to 10 for discussion and possible action, the Engine 18 overhaul report. We want to go to that one. Elaine, Nick?
Nick will report on the number 18.
Oh, my apologies. I thought Stan was going to do that. Did you have an update?
No.
I can go ahead and take it. It was an email from Tom. And it was, I did include a couple of you in the conversation, but the 18 has some additional issues relating to it. We do need a deadline, we do need a timeline. He has invited the board to come and tour and see the 18, and he can explain in more detail what needs to be done and what the issues are. But at this point in time, we're still working on the deadline and a commitment of when we can actually have possession of the Engine 18.
Okay, comments from the board?
Well, to begin with, we own the engine, right? I think it's time that we have to set a date. I mean, this has gone on for what, 3 years now, 2 years? And we're no further ahead than we were 2 years ago. And I really feel that we need to just tell Tom, If you can't do it, identify what you need done, and we'll have to pay for it. I mean, get outside help. We can't continue to operate this way. We're never gonna make any money. That's just my opinion.
Yeah, I concur with that completely. What I'd like to do is set up a date when at least a couple members of the commission and the general manager can go over to the shop, meet with Tom. It's in his shop. It's obviously our engine in his shop. But what he's not able to do, if it is something that we could have a third party do, then at that point, I think we find out if we would have to, if we would incur any cost for using his shop. But I think it's pretty simple. We need to put an RFP out and see if there's a qualified contractor. We will have to scope out exactly what needs to get done, put an RFP out and see if there's a qualified contractor that can get the job done. I don't know any other way around it. I mean, if you look at the budget, if you look at everything that we've planned for the past year and a half now, it's predicated on having that engine available to finally put the regular season, if you look back at the budget numbers, to put the regular season in the black. And stop relying solely on Polar to keep the railway operational. So, I mean, that would be my thought. Figure out what needs to get done, scope it out, figure out if we would incur any fee for doing work in his shop, and then put it out for RFP and see if we get a contractor.
Any other comment, anything from the public? No? Okay, maybe then Elaine, we'll just keep working on the schedules and see if we can get something with Tom at his shop or wherever, just to get down and face-to-face and keep this process moving.
Okay, I'm going to call on the board and see who's available.
Okay.
And we'll set up a timeline with Tom and go and pay him a visit and also check out the 18.
Yeah, I would suggest that, that you do our best to include Chairman McBride
Yes,
in that negotiation.
okay.
Thanks. Okay, with that, we'll move on to number 11. Oh,
If you're
excuse
gonna have
me.
a quorum, you gotta notice it, okay? Even though there won't be any action taken, presumably, at that meeting.
I think we'll look to limit that to 2 members and, yeah. Thanks, Mike. Okay, we'll move on to agenda item 11, discussion only, engineering report.
Yes, yeah, the big item with the station improvements. A couple ongoing track maintenance items there. As a result of the storm, actually, we didn't get hit too bad, but we did have some rock fall in a couple different locations. There's some big rocks that are now smaller rocks, courtesy of Gabe going up with a jackhammer and making them small enough that we can move out of the way by hand. We're gonna follow up with, when it's available, using Tom's Great All, which is his high rail mounted excavator, and get those pushed out of the way a little bit better. But we're ready to go as far as rocks at this point. There were a couple of trees he had to dig out of the way there too. And we do have a hanging rock, which is in one of our rock fall locations where for some reason the strata of the earth is leaning the wrong direction. The railroad there, it's been like that, right below the horseshoe curve, above Tunnel Number 2. So we're watching that guy. Anyway, nothing unusual. I'm pretty happy that we didn't get wiped out like we did a couple years ago. Gabe has also made a lot of improvements on progress on the Lineham Road crossing signal. We replaced, not to get too technical, rail taps and rail bonding, and also did some general cleanup there. We think we have that problem worked at this point. We're gonna take a look when the train runs down next month and see how the signal does react. Because of the fact that the signal was out of service for basically 2 months, we're required to do a major inspection. And just Tom pointed out to me that, hey, it's been 10 years. 10 years inspection is the same as the major inspection, which includes looking at some of the, basically putting all meters on the underground wiring. So that's been completed too. So we're starting fresh with our 10-year inspection and we'll go forward with that. Hopefully that's gonna solve our issues with that signal at this point. Gabe, as Elaine knows, been doing some miscellaneous trash control work below Eastgate. Again, that portion of the railroad is the recipient of everything downwind from the Carson City landfill. So ongoing effort, if you will, there. Other track item, we have some miscellaneous work scheduled here and there. We are gonna go ahead and see if we can get the ultrasonic rail inspection done this year, which is, again, I think I mentioned in the previous meeting, something we've deferred for the last couple of years because of budgetary items. Again, what that does is you have a high rail vehicle that does a rail inspection to give you an idea if you have a rail defect that's gonna lead to a broken rail. And pretty handy. So I'm gonna schedule that, and there's a couple different firms. We'll take a look at which way to go on that, but that's something we want to get scheduled this year. And we'll ask them to not make a special trip from Ohio to Nevada, but to stop by when they're doing something else in the area. The Eastgate Station, Eastgate expansion, the earthwork, we've had a number of issues, obviously, with, we want good dirt in there, but we've been getting lousy dirt. So I think, working with Elaine and also Gary Lewis with RCI, who's got an inspector that works with us all the time. And, we basically set up a new policy that, at least in theory, there'd be no dumping of material, no transport, imported material on that site unless they've been written permission and we have an inspector on site, to verify that what we get is what we get. What we're finding, I think, is that, in the middle of the night or sometime when no one's around, we get material that should have been taken to the dump and is not suitable for fill material, so then we have the costs of basically sorting out the good stuff from the bad stuff. Robert Matthews is gonna bring a power screed up there and try to help us out with some of that material, to sort out what we can work with and what we can't work with. But we're gonna try to set up this new policy to hopefully be able to confront whoever's out there, at least politely, as who are you and what are you doing here? And maybe that'll work. Carson City donated a couple more K-rails. We put them on both sides of that access down to that expansion. Again, there's plenty of opportunities for people to drive around those, but short of putting them around the entire site, putting in claymores and concertina wire, I don't think we're gonna keep people out. So anyway, we'll see. Blue building, we're gonna be planning to move both the track material that's stored on site there, as well as all the gates and maintenance way equipment up to commission property, if you will, and of course, related to the Polar Express. The track material, I think we're just gonna run left, but one of the things I'm gonna hit him up for is to, he's got some equipment there, just to blade off a smooth little area near where that signal bridge is, and we'll put our track material there. That doesn't tend to run off very rapidly because it's pretty heavy. So I think we're gonna be okay on that. And then gauge material is gonna have to go in, and equipment's gonna have to go into the storage shed, which I know Elaine's been working on. That's about all I've got. Next one's really a question. Again, I'm not sure, I think it's for you, Nick. How's our FEMA reimbursement request coming with DHS? I mean, I know they gave us a bunch of grief earlier on that we weren't eligible for the 5% state match of, the 50% state match of our 25% match because we didn't do things in time. But what I got from, it sounded like what was coming back from DHS and the state was that, well, you guys are not, the commission is not a state agency. But, yeah, we're not under the jurisdiction of Carson, Lyon, or Stewart County either. So I'm not sure if we're held up on that or what's going on with that reimbursement request. Again, FEMA approved 4 projects for the 2017 storm repair work. We did 3 of them. The 4th one was not pursued because it was too costly. But the 3 projects we did, we followed their complete rules. We went step by step, documented everything, submitted those reimbursement requests. And it's not a huge amount of money, but it's about $35,000. And I'm not sure what's going on with that. But quite frankly, it irritates the heck out of me if the state is going to say, well, you guys don't fit in the state category, but you're not subservient, if you will, or subordinate to Carson City or Lyon or Story County, so you're not really a public agency. So, well, we are. So I don't know what's going on with that. Again, I told Elaine is that if they say no, that I'm personally, as a Carson City business owner, if you will, going to make some phone calls to my elected officials, raise hell, because that's not right.
Okay,
That's my question on that.
And here's the update, is Nick and I need to make plans to go and actually sit down with them. As the board knows, or the commission knows, they would not show me the file. They wouldn't open it up. We discussed the issues with what type of agency that we are. So we may indeed have a few more hoops to jump through and some challenges there. But Nick and I will get together and we'll set a time to go and sit down and speak with Sue Coyote so that we can verify, what is it that we need to do or to prove ourselves as an agency, government agency.
Well, again, I would follow through with, if we're not a state agency, then I guess we don't have to follow NRS as far as bidding anymore. So,
Elaine, I'm available. Fridays generally are the best day for me. But anytime you can set up a meeting.
Okay, yeah, any questions or comments for Ken on the engineering report? No, anything from the public? Okay, we'll move on to agenda number 12 for discussion only, attorney's report. Mike?
The only thing, there was only one other item other than the usual review of minutes and agenda and so forth, and that was working through the Fair Harbor revisions with Elaine to go to a month-to-month contract. But otherwise, you guys are doing a great job because you don't have much for me to do outside of the meetings. That's all I got.
Okay, great, thank you. Then we'll go on to agenda number 13 for discussion only, our next meeting dates and agenda items. Looks like next one is scheduled for April 25th. Looks like here again in the same room. Okay. Any other comments or items we need to put on the agenda?
Are you gonna be here, Elaine?
That is the same week as the Railroad Conference in Sacramento. And it has proven to be valuable. If possible, and if everybody, if we notice this properly, could we move it a day ahead of schedule on a Wednesday?
Yeah, I'm fine with that. I don't know what, if we look at items that are on the agenda, is there anything that's pertinent that we need to keep business moving along? Is it so much to maybe skip a month? I know we don't have to meet every month. We've looked at that before in the past, as if there's months where we can meet. They don't necessarily have to, but it's nice to get continuous updates. So I'll let the board kind of think that through, but just an option.
We've covered a lot in the past 3 months, and especially in our planning, and we've taken care of our budget, our audit. I believe, unless the board would like those updates via email or just to meet for an update, it would be a quick meeting on a Wednesday. Otherwise, we can move it until May.
Any comments, questions? Sure. Yeah, we can move. I think either way, it really doesn't matter to me. I don't want to speak for everybody on this, but I know you look at the last one of May, the last meeting of May too, you're looking at, no, that's after Memorial Day weekend, so it wouldn't be too big a deal. But either way, I just, probably at your pleasure.
Maybe as we get closer,
Yeah,
at least in a couple of weeks, I'll know if we have some pertinent reports, especially if it comes to the 18.
right.
And if there's any items that do come into play. Again, Denny, did not put myself on the agenda, but I did need to fill in, if you don't mind.
No, go ahead.
Fill in what Ken was relating to, is that the blue building that we currently have no charge storage, we do need to vacate that building. And I know that VCTC has a container for us, but we do need to move now. And that being said, we need to hire a moving company to get us out of the blue building. And Stan's going to speak today about a couple of Connex or containers that we looked into. But we need to bring everything that belongs to V&T Railway closer to the depot. And it may mean that we not only need your Connex, we actually need 2 more.
Go.
And Stan will talk on that.
Okay.
But I
Yeah,
am going to move forward and arrange to have everything moved.
Our only hang up, because everything is completely closed on the new property, we have the new shop. I have access to it to move the stuff, the contents out of that. unfortunately, we keep getting this wet stuff coming from the sky that's not allowing us to get in there and move that trailer. So as soon as it's dry, we can get, I got the fire department that's volunteered to move it for us. We just got to get in there, and it's been a little sloppy lately.
And we do have a location for that particular container over by the rail bed that Ken was speaking on, which we have closed off with concrete barriers, so nobody's going in there now. Yeah, but the two containers, we'll talk with Ron Kipp regarding when we can move those in, and we need to do that right away, and those will be painted. And one will have two doors, so one will go next to the building, and then the other will be over in that alternative parking area. And so we plan to have those moved over as soon as we can so that then they can start the paving. And we're not bringing in these containers over brand-new paving.
Okay, we'll circle back on that other one. With that, we'll move to our final agenda, number 14, commissioner comments. We'll go over, Stan, here, anything?
Yeah, I'll just pass out. These are the estimates that we got on containers. We felt we needed to put a man door in them in addition to the open doors on the end. These are high quality, good condition containers. Right now, we're paying, what, $92 a month for storage space. To me, it's a no-brainer. We're going to, in the long run, we're going to pay for them. And like Elaine says, we have to coordinate with Ron Kipp when they start construction. We need the area leveled, but we need to put one of the containers down, or both of them in before they do the final paving and everything. So this is the cost Elaine was quoted on these, including delivery, setup.
So this is delivery?
Yes.
Yeah, I've just done this in business. This is actually a pretty good price here. Yeah, yeah.
That's one of my comments. Last week, Dave Peterson from the Carson Travel Authority arranged a meeting with the director of the State Museum, the State Railroad Museum, Peter Barton, and Elaine and Mike Santos and myself. And he was wanting to start talking about a collaboration of the 150th celebration this year. And there were a lot of items discussed. The director of the museum said that he would be willing to stamp a commemorative coin as part of the celebration. We talked about one ticket that they could ride the train, go to the museum, ride the train at the Railroad Museum for one price. I can't remember. There was a lot of, and Molly was there from Argentum too. And it's very positive, and I think we're going to see good results from this. And Dave Peterson's kind of spearheading the drive on this. Other things that we discussed, and I was surprised, the Railroad Museum is, I think they're interested in leasing equipment. And they have a car similar to the, what's that?
The McLeod?
The McLeod car that they said they would entertain, and it's not hard to move, but they would entertain giving us or leasing for us. They also said they had motor cars in case we go to the bicycle thing that would drag the bicycles back. So I thought it was a very positive meeting, and that's all I have to report.
Stan, do they have the ability, if we contracted them, to do the engine 18 work, you think? It's probably a detailed question, you may not,
I think they have.
but does it look like they might be able to?
I don't know. They have the experience. He said one man's been there 40 years, I think.
Yeah.
But I don't know what their workload is. We didn't discuss that.
It would be worth another meeting with the museum just specifically to talk about not just our marketing and our operations complementing, but also maybe some of our needs as far as our equipment. and
Yeah, that would be
maintenance.
revenue for them.
Oh, exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly, yeah.
Anything else, Nick?
I don't. Just looking forward to the bikes.
April, they'll be here in April.
The one thing that I thought might be nice to have, I know we keep looking at adding some additional parking, making improvements and whatnot, and then now we're talking about different storage containers. Could we get a detailed site map of the Eastgate Depot, or what it might look like conceptually? So that with all these new potential containers or storage, so that I can look at it, because right now I'm kind of thinking, where's it gonna go and how's it gonna work with traffic and parking, and you probably have something already, but
Yeah,
That's easy. We can take the latest plan that we did for paving, which shows the paving and the parking lot.
just plop in some,
Add these other things.
Yeah.
on there. That's a no-brainer.
yep, just,
yeah, we've walked and measured and eyeballed everything over and over again, various options, and, yeah, would be glad to show you.
Yeah,
You know,
great.
what we came up with and why. But could I, also just, on those storage containers and the estimates that you have, we do have the funds for those. There's a little money this year left in capital outlay, and there's also a little left over in maintenance. And between the two, we can cover this. And if you, just to not draw your eyes to it or make you look at it all over again, but on the profit or the expense outline that I gave you for this year, the revenue versus expenses, this year rental equipment being a lot of that, majority of that being just containers, $12,998. We could make this up just very quickly. To have our own
that'd be an item
containers.
you'll potentially bring back next month then,
Yes.
yeah, great,
To approve this?
right.
Well,
We
the
can't- we
funds are
can't-
there, I'm just gonna shift them, and I
Oh, if it's
actually
with-
need it
if it's
before
within
next
capital
month.
outlay, or it's already been
Yes.
approved, then, sure,
Okay.
okay, got it.
Okay, good.
Any other comments today? Hearing none, we are adjourned, folks, thank you.
Thank you.
I agree with you. I said we need.